It's a lot easier to make $100,000 in a month than it is to make $100,000 in a year. Okay. And so I'm going to prove that to you in this video. And not only that, but I'm going to teach you exactly how to do it. And I want you to think about it. Do you believe that the number one agent in your market is working harder than you? Okay. Are you working harder than them? Right? Have you ever thought about that? It's a good question, right? It's an interesting question. And I dare to say that the number one agent in your market is not, okay, they are not personally working harder than you. And, you know, maybe they are because they want to. Maybe something's going on, right? There's a lot of different scenarios, right? There's a lot of different, there's an exception to every rule, and so on and so forth, right? And especially if they're a team leader, right? That team leaders, right? They have an entirely, like, if you're a team leader, you're not a team leader, you're not an agent. Okay. Being a team leader is another full-time job. It's another job, right? You have your agent and your sales, but then you have being a team leader. That's a totally different ballgame. I'm not talking about team leaders. I'm talking about the number one agents. Okay. People that are in sales still, are they working hard? And I can just tell you from experience, when I got back in the business in 2008, okay, I was working 50 plus hours a week, right? And that first year I came back, I made 80,000. Then I made 150,000. I made 150. I made 80 in 2008. I made 100 in 2009. I made 150 in 2010. I want to say I made 150 again. No, I made more that next year. Regardless of that, my point is that I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, grinding my ever living face off to make $100,000. And if you fast forward to 2017, the first year that I made $1 million, I can tell you with certainty that I was working less when I was making the $1 million. And after I made the $1 million for a couple of years, I was working even less than I was the first year I made the $1 million. And by the time that I stepped out of sales in 2022, March of 2022 was my last listing that I sold. Really for those last 3 years, I was working 20 hours, 25 hours a week. Okay. Now, like when it's like my days were completely full with real estate stuff to try to build a business, because all I was focused on was trying to make $1 million, help as many people as I could buy and sell properties, and become financially free. That was everything I was focused on, and I put every single waking hour into it. Now, once I got to the $1 million a year and I'm making 100,000 a month, at that time, it was like the heavens opened up, and now somehow, some way, I had free time on my hands. So what did I do? I immediately put that free time and invested it into another business. What was that business? It was a real estate coaching business called Zero to Diamond that I literally started putting 50% of my time into. So when I went from 50 hours a week as an agent to 25 hours a week as an agent, I was still working 50 hours a week. The other 25 was building a different business. So I was able to invest that time into another business. I didn't have to do that. I could have spent more time with the family, or relaxed, or did whatever I wanted to do, took up a new hobby, whatever. But I didn't do that. Why? Because I'll tell you why. Because I realized once you make $1 million, you realize how much of a rat race being a real estate agent actually is, and that it is a very high level of active income, which means you have to go work to make the money. When you stop working, you stop making the money. And when you get to the million, which always was that mirage, it was like, oh, if I could only get to $1 million, then everything will be all right. when you got to the $1 million as a real estate agent, you realize, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. Even though you're working less, you still got to go. You still got to go, and there's still a lot of stuff happening. And so I immediately said, I got to build a different business. I have to build a different business. And I didn't know that God's plan. See, the whole time that I was building my real estate business, I didn't realize that that was just a stage that God put me through to set me up to be in the position I am now to help agents who are going through what I went through, go through what they're going through. I had no idea. I thought that that was my plan, was to help people buy and sell real estate and become financially free and provide a really nice family for nice life for my family. I did not realize that all the trials and tribulations that I was going through was a setup to put me in a position to understand how, right? I went through all of that. God put me through all of that to learn how to help people through all of that. And that's what I'm doing now. So this is what I want to talk to you guys today about, because I'm just telling you, it's much easier to make 100,000 in a month. You work a lot less than to make 100,000 in a year. And if you believe what I'm saying, then let me know in the chat. Type a yes if you hear what I'm saying and you're ready to go on this little journey with me to understand this a little deeper. All right. So today I want to go through basically a three-step process to help you understand what I'm saying and to put yourself in the position where you can get there too. Okay. Before I do that, I want to talk about a man. And this man, his name's Bob. That was his real name. And he was a hero of mine. And Bob was one of the top real estate agents in my market. And Bob passed away. You know what? Let's see. At this point, it's probably been 10 years. Probably 8 years. 8 or 9 years. And this guy was a hero to me. And he was one of the top agents in the area, and he worked in my office. And I always went in his office to get advice. And I just remember so many conversations that I had with him about prospecting and deals and the market, and just such a nice, awesome guy. He was so full of knowledge when it came to real estate sales. But Bob was very old, and he died of old age. And I remember the day that we found out that Bob was heading downhill and he was going to pass away soon. I remember that day, and the very next morning, Bob was in his office calling for sell by owners and expireds. And I went to my broker and I was like, Pat, what is he doing? Like, is he becoming senile? Like, does he know where he's at, kind of thing? And like, he was of perfect mind, body, spirit. It was nothing like that. No dementia. He literally was there to make his spouse as much money as he could before he passed away. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because here my hero is, who literally is living out his last few days calling for sell by owners and expireds. Do what? And right then in that moment, I said, you know what? Not me. I'm not going to live my life like that. And I'm not going to end up in a position where I'm coming to the office to call for sell by owners and expired to leave my spouse as much money as I can before I die, when I only have like another, I forget how long he had. It was like 3 months later, and he was passed away. It's like, I'm going to spend the last 3 months. And he made calls till 4 days before he passed away. He made calls till he couldn't get out of bed. And I tell you guys that because I want you to think about your future, right? And what I'm going to illustrate to you today, I want you to start visualizing your future, and I want you to start believing in your future. And I don't want you to allow your past to dictate your present. That's going to dictate your future. Let your future pull your present towards it. the more we contemplate about our future, the deeper that we contemplate about our future, the easier it is for us to shape our future. So I'm going to dive into all of this stuff. But what I want to do first is I want to share with you. I'm going to go to my trusty Vibe board here, and I want to share with you the stages of a real estate agent so that you fully understand exactly what it is that I'm sharing with you. Because until you understand what I'm about to share with you here, then you're not really going to understand the three steps and how to use them. Okay. So everything's all good there. Y'all can see me on there. All right, cool. All right. So let me know in the chat that you can see my screen and everything is looking lovely there. Okay. All right. So here are 4 levels here. And so these are the levels of, and I'm waiting on a comment just to make sure you guys can see my screen good. Okay, cool. So the bottom level here, the bottom level of an agent, right, is you're untrained. Okay. So when you're untrained, okay, right, this is, okay, you're a new agent, right? You're winging it. You don't know what's going on. You're just trying to learn. Everything is like, seems like there's this huge mountain of knowledge. You'll never learn it all in a day. Most of these newer untrained agents are part-time. Okay. Which means they're probably working like 2 to 10 hours a week on their real estate business, right? And they're doing like 0 to 50,000 a year. Okay. Yeah, we all go through all of these different stages. Okay. The next, and so now we graduate, and now we're a producer. Okay, we graduate. Once we make it through this stage, okay, now we're a producer, right? And this is where we at this point we understand the process of a deal. Like, we know the process of talking to the buyer or seller, walking them through it, doing the contract. You're going under contract, negotiating the deal, getting everything signed, title company, inspection, lender, closing, the whole 9 yards. We've done some deals. We're making 50,000 a year. We've done some deals. We understand the deal. Now that we understand, we're not just untrained. Now we're trained. We're not just winging it. We know what's going on to a certain extent, but we're still trying to learn. Oh, and by the way, at this bottom level right here, right on this bottom level, we are a 95.5. And what I mean by that is that we're 95% high pressure, because this is how we're trained. We're trained to try to close deals, right? And that's the only training. So we start to become we start to become programmed at the very first level, and so we're 95.5. We're 5% of us, right? And so 5% of what we do and the decisions we make, right, are focused around helping people, right? And like, we may care about people more than 5%. We may care about them 100%. We may care about them, 70, 80, 90%. But the actions that we take, right? The actions that we take actually are executed on a 95% of us trying to just close deals, because that's all we know, right? We don't know anymore. So as we become a producer, we get a little more knowledge about what's going on, and we start to like do some things for people. We start to realize maybe helping people is the way. We're not 100% sold on it, not 100%, but now we're at a 25. 75-25. where now we're at 75% high pressure, right? And we're dabbling a little more with just going all in on helping people. Okay. And at this stage where we're a producer, oh, here we go. My vibe is probably going to reset. So let's just give that a second. Let's see. Okay. So when yeah, it's going to reset. So we understand the process of a deal at this point, right? We're still very transactional, right? We're still very transactional, right? Which means we're still like really like using scripts and trying to handle objections and really try to close deals. And at this stage, we're working 40 to 50 hours a week, right? And we're making 50 to 250,000 a year. Okay. Cool. Okay. Now, say we come in, we're new, we make it to the next level. We're a producer now, right? We're selling stuff. We're selling more. We're not part-time. We're full-time, right? We are at this point, we are full-time, right? This is what we do. We are becoming professionals. Okay. And so some agents get stuck on these. Some agents get stuck right here. Some agents make it to the producer level. They get stuck right there and they just stay there forever. They stay at the 50 to 250 a year and they never graduate, right? But some agents, they realize what's going on and they hire a coach or they learn something from somebody that helps them get unstuck, where they learn something new, so they do things new. They learn something new to do something new, and then they have something new and they become a top producer. Okay. Now, a top producer, what they did, okay, was they realize scalability. Right? They realized scalability, and that what they needed to do, the actions they needed to take, and the way they needed to build their business needs to be based on scalability, scaling your business. Right down here at producer, you learn how to do a deal, so you're just trying to do as many deals as you can, but you're not really taking on the idea of scaling your business up. That's why you stay stuck where you are until you get with someone who can teach you how to scale your business. Okay, so when you're a top producer, you realize scalability, and at this point, you're more like a 25-75, because this is what happens, right? Where you're 25 high pressure and you're 75% all in on people, where you're not trying to close the deal. What I mean by people is you're not trying to close the deal. You realize the deal is the relationship with the person, and you try to help this person do what they're trying to do instead of just try to close the deal. And you start to realize that you make more money and you do more business when you operate like that than you do when you're just trying to close deals. So you start to lean that way, but it doesn't happen overnight. This happens in phases. You don't just go from 95.5 to total relationships over transactions 100% overnight. This takes years, right? When I was introduced to this and learned this, I went 75-25, then I went 50, and this is years. It took a decade for me to get to the diamond producer level. Okay, so you realized scalability, right? And at this point, you're still working 40 to 50 hours a week, right? But the actions you're taking are to scale your business, and you're making somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 750,000 a year. And this is exactly my career. I'm taking you guys through my career. This is exactly how it went down. Right? Let me separate these with a green line right there. Okay. And then we reached the top, which is diamond producer, right? And the diamond producer, you know, Remax had an award, the Diamond Award, right? Which is to make $1 million a year. I won that award many times, you know, and I named my coaching program Zero to Diamond, right? Diamond is making $1 million a year. And so at this point at Diamond Producer, you are 100% repeat and referrals, past clients, referrals of referrals, right? Your business is passive in terms of lead generation. And so when you think about lead generation, you're not trading time for leads. See, down here, you're trading time for leads, time, money, and energy for leads. Down here, you're trading time, money, and energy for leads, right? Right here, you're not trading as much because you're learning scalability, but you're still trading time, money, and energy from leads. But right here, you've built the machine and you're not trading time, money, and energy from leads anymore. All your business comes to you. You don't spend time chasing business. Business spends time chasing you at this level. Okay? At this point, you're 95.5 the other way. You finally realize that this is the path. 95% on people. Who cares about deals? I know I'm going to do so many deals if I'm helping people. And you understand the principles. You still got that 5% high pressure because look, using your skills to make money is a skill that you need to develop. So you're still talking people into closing deals, sure, but you're doing it at the right time under the right circumstances when it's in their best interest. At this point, you're working 20 to 30 hours a week and you're making anywhere from $1 to $3 million a year. Okay. So I can tell you from experience, through my career and coaching thousands of agents, that it's a lot easier. Every agent I talk to that is at this level right here, right? They are not working a lot of hours, but they are making the most money. Okay. So the question is, how do you get from here? How do you get from here to here to here to here as quickly as possible? Well, the first thing you have to do is understand this path. That's the first thing you got to do is understand this path. You have to have somebody like myself lay it out for you so you understand, and then you can pick where you are. Okay, where am I? I'm a new agent. Okay, so I must be down here on the untrained stage, and maybe I'm working 40 hours a week and I'm making 150,000 a year. So I'm a producer, but I'm not a top producer yet. How do I go from producer to top producer, right? And what are the differences? Well, I just told you the differences. Here we're very transactional. And we're not trying to scale. We're just trying to do as many deals as we can. Right here, we're actually trying to build a business. A top producer, they've realized that you will burn yourself out by just being a producer. So the top producer produces more, but they're also building a business and building a brand that they can scale so that one day they can hit diamond producer and they don't have to work as hard, but they're making way more money. Okay. So let me know in the comments if this is making sense and this is helping you. Okay, let me know. Give me some feedback real quick, and then we'll go on to the next thing. Okay. So what I want to share with you guys is the 3 steps, right, to go from, the hardest working agent in your area making 100,000 a year to making $1 million a year, working 20 to 30 hours a week. Okay. So I'm going to give you the 3 steps right here. And then I'm going to go in detail with the 3 steps after I tell you what the 3 steps are. So the first step is you're going to believe in your future. Okay. That's number one. The second thing you're going to do is make a decision. Okay. And the third thing you're going to do is you're going to build the machine. Okay. So let me get back to my desk here. And I'm not done with the vibe board. All right. I'm not done with the vibe board, but I'm gonna take a break from it for just a second because I'm gonna illustrate to you how to build the machine. I just took a sip of Fresca, so I just know I just got a new listing somewhere. Somewhere I got a listing. Okay. So when we build our future, I mean when we believe, when you believe in your future, I'm just telling you, one of the biggest reasons why most agents stay stuck where they are is because they do not visualize where they could be, and therefore they do not put a plan in place for the present to line up with their future. It's so fascinating. When I came back, or listen, I have always been a futuristic dreamer. Always. When I was roofing houses as a teenager, I had dreams of making $1 million. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And whoa, I'm going to give you one even crazier than that. I remember when I'm dead serious. I remember when I was a teenager, before I started roofing, I can't remember where. No, actually, I think I was like 16. Because I remember I was playing guitar. I was when I went through my phase where I was playing guitar. And I remember having a premonition that I would become great. I'm not lying about this. I would become great at something, and then I would turn around. I would become great. I would make a lot of money, and then I would turn around and help people. I had this thought when I was a teenager. That's crazy to even say that out loud right now. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but so like my entire life has been focused on that. I didn't realize I was going to, make a bunch of money as a real estate agent, and like God's plan for me was like, succeed so that you could help people through whatever they're going. Like I had no idea what all that was about. But my point is that I had a thought about my future, and I was driven towards the hope of that. So to fast forward, when I got back in the business in 2008, after I lost everything, I was homeless, sleeping on friends' couches, sleeping in my car. I was eating out of friends' refrigerators. I was bankrupt. I foreclosed on a house. I had to give my cars back. I was roofing houses, working on an oil rig, and serving tables. I got laid off from the oil rig, and I came back into real estate. And after about a year of being back in the business and understanding what was going on with the foreclosure market, I had my futuristic thought. And my futuristic thought was that, because what I realized was all the foreclosure agents weren't returning my calls. And so I was like, well, the foreclosures aren't going to be here forever. And when they go away, these agents are going to have no business because they're not building any kind of clientele. They only have the banks as their clients. And when the foreclosure business goes away, those agents are going to go away. But I said, who are going to be the most successful agents then? And I thought, if I went out and instead of trying to get foreclosure listings, if I went out and found the buyers for these foreclosures, helped them get really great deals, then 3 years later, when there's no foreclosures and prices are higher, they would sell those listings with me, buy another property, and refer 8 more people to me. I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be the number one agent in my market. In 2009, I said to myself, I'm going to be the number one agent in my market because of this. And so I believed my future. I knew exactly what my game plan was going to be and how it was going to play out, because at that point I understood what it meant to build relationships with your clients instead of just trying to close deals. And so I knew that every foreclosure I could sell would turn into 20 to 30 more deals over the next decade. And that's exactly what happened. I emailed about 1 million people, cold email. 1,000 responded and 20 bought something in 2008. Foreclosures. I made 20 sales in 2008. Foreclosures of condos on the beach and stuff. And then I continued with the process. And then by 2014, I was closing 100 deals a year, but it all came from what the seeds that I started to plant in 2008. So something I want you guys to understand. Okay. You always 100% every single time you reap what you sow, but you don't reap when you sow. You reap what you sow, but not when you sow it. So a lot of people, they'll like make calls and I didn't get anything this month and stuff. I'm like, number one, what's your definition of getting something? Because I'm sure you had great conversations with people that are going to do business with you. Number two, your perspective isn't on the right page yet with understanding that there are people you're talking to that are doing deals. You just haven't figured out how to communicate with them yet at a level that you can squeeze that business out of them. You haven't reached that level yet. So now you're starting to doubt the process when it's actually working. It's working for you. So you start to backtrack and think that what you're doing is not working. And it all comes from the fact. See, when you start to detract from what you're doing, what it tells me is that you're not focusing, you're not contemplating your future deep enough to control your present habits. Guys, I'm going to say something else. You got to be 100% committed to the goal, but 100% flexible on the pathway to that goal. You can't just say, I'm going to do expireds and I'm going to use this script and I'm just going to use it until it works. That's not how it works. You have to be 100% committed to the goal, but 100% flexible to the pathway to that goal. You've got to be flexible on how you're going to get there. But I visualized being number one. I visualized making $1 million. I visualized all this years and years and years and years before it happened. And that future is what pulled I shaped my future by contemplating my future, by controlling my present and allowing my past. Dude, there's people that went through what I went through, losing everything, homeless, bankrupt, losing $1 million, all that stuff, who allow what happened to them affect what they do today and the decisions they make today, which keeps them exactly where they are tomorrow. I never thought like that. I've always been a futuristic dreamer and I allow my future to pull me in whatever direction that I'm trying to go in. But most people are driven by fear. 80% of people are driven by fear and they let fear dictate their decisions. And only 20% are driven by, approach or success or courage. And this thought of allowing your past to dictate your present, that's called determinism. This was a term that was created back in the mid 1800s by psychologists, and for 100 years they believe that wherever you are in life is because of your past and you can't change it. Right? It's like dominoes that fall down into a certain place, and this is exactly where you are and where you're supposed to be. So since then they've learned that it's not determinism, that actually that's a false premonition. So the next term that they established was prospection. Prospection means that you allow your future to determine your present, not your past. Use your past as an asset, right? And what, like, the more disconnected you are of your future, okay, listen to this. The more disconnected you are of your future, the more you allow these really small, minute, urgent tasks that are holding you back. See, what you guys do, not you guys, what a lot of agents do is they allow these, they give themselves tasks to do to distract themselves from the things that actually move the needle, because they're not focused on their future enough to make the things that move the needle the priority. I'm just telling you, like, I'm giving you guys the real talk here behind this. I'm going to give you some nuts and bolts when I lay out how to build the machine. Let me ask you this. Put in the comments. If you knew that you would get 10 listings if you made 500 calls, how fast would you make 500 calls? Right? I want to see some comments. How fast would you make 500 calls if you knew that you would get 10 listings? Right? Exactly. 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 So part of the problem is a lack of expectation. Part of the problem of procrastination is lack of expectation. You have such a lack of expectation, and you're thinking like an average agent. An average agent is going to think, what if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? And the top producers, the diamond producers, they're saying to themselves, when it works, blank. They're thinking, when it works, think about how wonderful this is going to be. Because they've already put it in their mind that it's going to work. Florence Shin, he said, know you've already received and act accordingly. No, you've already got it. Guys, before I made $1 million a year, I was already a millionaire in my head, and I already felt like I had the money. I already felt like I had the money before I had the money. Because in my mind, I've talked about this. If you have the choice between wisdom and money, you always choose the wisdom, because you can get more money with the wisdom, but you can't necessarily get more wisdom with the money. That's why if you find the right coach, they're worth way more than whatever they charge. Give them whatever they want, because the money you're trading money for wisdom. Okay. So when I was sitting there, not had made the million yet, but I felt like I was a millionaire. Why did I feel like I was a millionaire already? Because I had $1 million worth of wisdom already. The money wasn't in my bank account yet, but I didn't care, because I had already gained the wisdom that I needed to get there. And it was just a matter of me putting in the work that I knew I was going to put in. So I was good. Right? It's just a lack of expectation. Cool. The next one, right? So the first thing you got to do is believe in your future. Create a future, believe in it, and go after it. Without that, listen, without that, you have nothing. Without that, you have nothing. Faith. Okay, the Bible says faith is a substance of things hoped for. Faith is a substance of things hoped for. When you lose hope for something, you have nothing. I read this story about people that were in the Holocaust and everything, and some people that survived, right? They had hope of something, and they talked about the stories of people of what they hoped for and the future that they could see themselves, and it's literally what kept them alive. And they literally watched people die, where like their families died, or they just lost all hope, and they literally just just died, right? Because they lost hope. Without hope, without a future, without something that's pulling us to something, we lose everything about why we're alive. Like our families, like our daughters and sons growing up, and us being able to see them get married and graduate and all that good stuff. right? Growing old with your spouse and enjoying retirement and all the awesome plans you guys have together and all that. Like that is something that keeps you going. You got to do the same thing in business. So you have to create a future, create your future. The more that you contemplate and the deeper you contemplate on the future, the easier it is for you to shape it. Cool. So the second thing is make a decision. Make a decision. Okay. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, he says, when you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Now, I'm going to give you guys something else. I truly believe this, and I haven't talked about this in a long time. I talked about it on early videos earlier in my coaching career, but I strongly believed in something that I called phone call karma, and I coined this term long before I even started coaching. This was back in 2000. Like this was back in like 2003 and 4 when I came up with this term, because when I made the decision to make my calls, good things always happen. I wouldn't necessarily get a deal from the calls, but then while I'm making calls, I get a call from somebody I showed property to 2 days ago that wants to write an offer. And I felt like that was the universe conspiring to help me. So I took it as though when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, everything works out. And I'm not anxious for tomorrow. I'm not worried about tomorrow. Yes, did I have a lot of worries throughout my career? And like, oh my God, absolutely. But when I was committed to doing my part, business always came through for me. And outside of the market crashing and me losing everything because I was dumb enough to borrow enough money to flip houses and all the things that I did, that was a big mistake. And I didn't understand the principles that I teach you guys, like closings happen every day forever, and business is unlimited, and competition doesn't exist, and relationships over transactions, and all the great things that I teach you. I didn't realize any of that, right? I had to go through that to learn that so that I could share that with you. But when I was doing what I was supposed to do, business always took care of itself. But you've got to make a decision. So I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to realize that you already know the fundamentals of what you need to do to get to the $1 million. Right? Like, you know how to go get a listing. You know how to make calls. You know how to show property. The problem is you're not doing it. So you know what you need to do. Now, you don't know what you need to do at the level that you need to do it at. And that's why you need to start doing it, so you can practice, and you get a mentor, and you get a coach, and you take challenges, and you listen to YouTube videos, and do all the things, and you make your calls and gain experience and learn how to communicate better, and you become a better, more efficient communicator, and make people feel comfortable with you, and create environments where people like you and want to do business with you. That all takes practice. Okay. And so you'll need help to get to the level that you want to get to, but you don't need any help but with yourself to get started. And it all just starts with making a decision to do it. And the easiest way to make the decision is to have a future that you're excited about. And then it's easy to make the decision. That's why I started with believe in your future. Right? And the older that we get, the grindier we get, the grittier we get. And like I've been gritty my whole life. And so the definition of grit is sticking with something for years and even decades. Right? 100% committed to the goal, but 100% flexible to the pathway. Right? Grit doesn't mean keep doing the same exact thing that's not working until it works. No. You have the big goal, but then the micro details of how you get there may change. but not giving up on the goal just because one micro action didn't work. Trade it out for another micro action and keep rocking. When you understand the principles that, for example, conversation is the key to all closings. You're never going to do a deal without talking to someone. If that's the case, if that's the facts, then why don't I just talk to people all day? Like, why don't I just talk to people all day? Right? Let me get a sip of Coke Zero. I got a good. Whoa. I'm kind of getting past my time here. I could keep going. All right. I could keep going, but I'm gonna get to build the machine, right? So I can try to wrap this thing up for you. Okay. What do I mean by build the machine? Okay. What I mean by build a machine is build your brand. Okay. The reason why it's easier to make 100,000 in a month than it is to make 100,000 in a year is because the person making 100,000 a year is having to go out there and scratch and fight for everything they got because nobody knows who they are. The agent that has the brand built where they are the favorite when they walk in the door, see, you become the person that people say yes to, that people want to do business with before they even talk to you. Referrals, repeats, referrals over referrals. When you get your business to that level, I'm going to show you how to do it really quickly. Right? So number one, what is a brand? Myron Golden, he says a brand is a name that reminds you of a story that you want to be in. Okay, it's a name that reminds you of a story that you want to be in. So when you hear Ricky Carruth, you hear the story that you hear there is, somebody who, you hear perseverance, you hear determination, you hear hard work, you hear helping people, you hear selfless, you hear, community outreach, serving people. That's what you think of when you hear my name. And my story is a story that you want to be in. That's why you're all here watching this video right now. Right? And so you have to create that same feeling within your clientele, right? People in your market. How do you do that? Well, you have to scale the unscalable. Scale the unscalable. Okay. What does that mean? Well, if we know that conversations are the key to all closings, and we know that the only thing between us and $1 million a year are thousands of one-on-one conversations with people in our market. Okay. So if we know all those things, right, and we know that it's the one-on-one conversation, and the one-on-one conversation is a non-scalable, it's an unscalable activity. So think about this, right? The way to build your brand as a real estate agent is to scale the unscalable. Okay. What is the one thing that moves the needle as a real estate agent? Conversations with prospects. Conversations with prospects. I don't care if you're on YouTube as your main lead gen source, Zillow, cold calling, door knocking, direct. I don't care what it is. This is not a cold calling video. This is how to make 100,000 a month video. Whatever it is, you got to talk to them. So we know that. And we know that those one-on-one conversations are not scalable, even if your lead gen is scalable. People message me, they're like, Ricky, you're making calls and my videos are prospecting at midnight when people are watching my videos. So what do you got to say about that? I'm like, but I've already talked to the prospect that you're trying to do business with, already established the relationship. They're getting my emails and seeing my videos as well. I got to them before you did because you're waiting on them to call you versus you calling them. See, agents who wait on their prospects to call them are average agents. That's the definition of an average agent. You wait on your prospects to call you. High producers, top producers, they call their prospects first. And what they do is they make so many calls that their prospects start cold calling them. So if we know this, right, and we believe that one-on-one conversation is not scalable, how can we make it scalable? So it's perspective, right? If I'm riding on the same road as you in the same car, and you see red cars and I see white cars, and that's all we see, but we're passing the same cars, we're in the same vehicle, but my brain is programmed to see white cars and yours is programmed to see red cars, but it's the same cars. Why are we seeing different cars? It's because our brains are programmed differently, and we're set up to perceive the same situation totally differently. That's like the presidential debate. The presidential debate, you have people that love Trump that say Trump slaughtered Kamala, and you got people that love Kamala that say Kamala slaughtered Trump. They saw the same debate. Why is one group saying that this person, overwhelmingly won, and this group says overwhelming the other person won? Why is that? Because that's the way that they have programmed their brain to recognize and to operate. You can program your brain the same way with anything that you want. You can say one-on-one calls isn't scalable, but yet you have to make them anyway. When you get your leads from Instagram, you can only have so many conversations. And if I'm just piling my day up with conversations, I can beat you easily. But nevertheless, calls are scalable. How? Because it's seeds that you're planting that turn into 20, 30, 40, 50 deals over the life of your career. Every seed that you plant can potentially turn into 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 deals over the life of your career. Why wouldn't you plant as many of these as you can right now? Because remember, you reap what you sow, but you don't reap when you sow. So if we don't control when we sow what we reap, I want to make sure I'm reaping as much. I want to make sure I'm sowing as much as I can now so that I can have as much reaping going on whenever the reaping starts happening. Why wouldn't I? That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, so if we want to build this machine, let me get back on my vibe. Okay. Make sure that's still moving. Yeah, we moving. We are moving and a grooving. All right, cool. Oh, by the way, I just got these in. These are this is I just started my new coaching program 4 months ago. I already have 6 $25,000 in a month winners. This is a $25,000 in a month award winner, and I have 4 $50,000 in a month winners. I just started this thing 4 months ago, and I already got 6 $25,000 in a month award winners and 4 $50,000 in a month award winners, and I have a $100,000 award too that somebody's about to get. Somebody's almost there. Okay. So some of you guys have seen this before, but I want to illustrate this really quickly again, because this is how you build the machine. Okay. Year 1, new leads. Year 2, the new leads, because you've got your weekly email in place, these people from year 1 never forget you. So they become warm leads year 2. Year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7. These people from year 1 never forget you. They never forget you. Year 2, same thing. We prospected year 2. So now our business is this big. Boom, 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 boom. They never forget you. Year 3, new leads. Same thing. And what happens is our business continues to grow. Every year, even though we're putting in the same amount of work on our lead gen, but the weekly email and our videos and all of our branding apparatuses are making sure no one ever forgets who we are. And so let's just take year 6, for example, right here. Year 6, if we didn't prospect in year 6, our business is still the same size as it was in year 5, even though we didn't prospect at all. 0. Year 7, no prospecting. Year 8, no prospecting. Year 9, our business stays the same size. So we had this growth, and what we're doing is we're prospecting every year, adding to our database, and we've got weekly emails and videos and everything else that we need to do to make sure nobody ever forgets us, and we build the business up. So our business has this kind of shape. Actually, there we go. Our business has this kind of shape. Now, what's interesting is that right here, this is stage 1, where we're making 0 to 50,000. Right here is stage 2, where we're a producer now. We're making 50 to 250. Right here is stage 3. We're making 250 to 750. Right, and so this is the untrained. This is a producer. We're a top producer, and now we're a diamond producer right here. And if you don't know what shape this is, it's this shape, right? You're prospecting every year, and then the year you stop prospecting. So the year that you stop prospecting, which is right here, right? This is where you're making your $1 million a year. This is the year that you stop prospecting right here. Because once you get to the amount of money you want to make, you don't have to prospect anymore. So now you're a diamond producer making $1 million a year. And guess what? You're not prospecting anymore, but your business is the same exact size as it was the last year that you prospected. And now you're making $100,000 a month, working 20 to 30 hours a week. I did it. I've coached other agents who have done this. This is not a theory. I don't coach on theory. I don't teach theory because I don't know any theories. This is all I know. What practically works. I didn't read this in a book. This is my life. This is my story. This is what I teach. This is what I have agents that have done this. Cool. So that is how you make that is how making $100,000 in a month is much easier than making $100,000 in a year. I hope you got a lot out of this video. I'm going to put another video right here for you guys to watch. And I invite you to take my next Set More Listing Appointments Challenge. I'll put a link in the description at setmorelistingappointments.com. And until then, keep crushing it. Keep selling. I love you guys. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.